You probably do not have enough in your retiree health account. Now, I know what a lot of you are saying is that, no, I've got way too much in there, believe me, and I don't want to leave a penny extra in there. I totally get it. That's the risk we take with the retiree health account, is if we don't use it or one of our eligible dependents, our spouse or an eligible child does not use it, yes, it stays into the VIBA trust. So the concern is leaving too much in there. I totally get it. But from the conversations I've heard, the comments I've heard, that I think a lot of pilots are probably way underestimating what their healthcare costs are going to be, and also how long their RHA is going to last, because I think they're going to burn through it a lot faster than what they anticipate. So the last video I did was about what medical insurance costs are in retirement. So now we're taking that and we're talking about how do we parlay that into how long the RHA is going to last and what our RHA balance should be. So I totally get it, because this is one of the biggest concerns out there, is that pilots are concerned about having too much in there. So let's just take a look at it. That's what this video is about. Hey, before we get going, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you know when new videos come out. Also, this is the fourth video in my series on retirement medical insurance planning. And so I've got some cheat sheets and some checklists down in the link on YouTube that you can download to help you navigate some of the Medicare and the United medical insurance decisions that you need to make as you come up on retirement. And the last thing before we get going, if you're coming up in retirement and you want to talk about generating a personalized, customized retirement income plan, let's sit down and have an informal conversation about that. You know, one of the risks of retirement income planning is withdrawing too much too quickly. And I think most people err to the other side, where they don't actually draw enough out. So they're not actually enjoying the hard-earned money that you have invested and worked for your entire life. So that's the other side of it too, is you want a retirement income plan that works specifically for you so that you're enjoying the fruits of your labor for all these years. Hey, I'm Dan Lohmar, certified financial planner professional with United Wealth Management, where we specialize in peer app management and financial planning for pilots at United Airlines. And like many of you, I'm a United pilot also. Let's jump into it and take a look and talk about how the RHA can be used and how long it might last with various medical costs in retirement. All right, so just a quick review of my last video, just so we can start off on the same page and talk about what the medical costs are. Go back and look at that, because I kind of summarized how I came up with these numbers and what it makes sense. So in retirement, a single person who's going to be probably in the second IRMA bracket, very likely might be a single pilot, could have medical costs without a long-term care insurance and policy of almost $8,000 per year. And again, that's because the Medicare surcharges get pretty expensive at that point. And then a retired couple in the base Medicare cost bracket, about a little over $10,000 per year. And again, these are using the United Aetna Medicare Advantage ESA PPO, or that's the insurance cost I'm using. And if we add a couple long-term care insurance policies in there, those are some of the costs down there at the bottom. I use a healthcare inflation rate of 5.8%. That comes right from the resources that we use for retirement planning. And if we're talking about long-term care insurance premiums, I just assume those stay as level premiums. So what we look at for a lifetime cost, if we look at a 25-year retirement for a single person, using those same numbers, a little over, almost $220,000 over a 25-year lifetime. If you go out to 30 years, it bumps up to almost $270,000. The numbers I ran with no long-term care insurance policy for a couple, a little over $10,000 per year. 25 years, $277,000, and $339,000 over their lifetime, over a 30-year lifetime. And that really coincides with what the Fidelity study mentions, which I mentioned at the beginning of that last video, and they estimated about $300,000 per couple. Is that what you need in your RHA? Not necessarily, because a lot of it depends on what healthcare inflation is going to be and also the growth rate of the account itself. So that would be the total spending over the lifetime. But let's take a look and see if we use a couple assumptions on what the retiree health account, how it grows. It grows pretty conservatively, and it's invested pretty conservatively. So let's let's use this pretty conservative rate of return of 5% and then healthcare inflation of 5.8%. Again, you can run your own numbers. That's the whole point of this, is to run your own numbers, what is realistic, what you think is realistic for you. And let's take a look at what that looks like. So if a pilot starts out with $300,000 in retirement, that's in the Retiree Health Account, that's the beginning balance. And I use that number because it's on the high side. I know there are some pilots out there who have more than $300,000, but it's probably on the high side, and it's probably more. Like I said, I think a lot of folks are underestimating what they need in there. So I'm using one of the higher numbers, and this would show that, look, if you retire at $300,000 in your Retiree Health Account and you're not paying for any long-term care insurance premiums, then you're going to run out after about 30 years. And you're looking at about age 92, 93 here. Before it runs out. If you add a long-term care insurance premiums onto that, so you're at another $5,000 per year. So that decreases the spend down time, approximately 7 years or so. So then moving on. So let's take a look at a $250,000 account balance just to show, because that's a little bit more along the lines of what we're seeing. And I just did a retirement plan for a couple who had about $250,000 in there. How's that look for them? No long-term care insurance, so they're looking at about 87 before that age 87 before that completely depletes. And if they're buying long-term care insurance policy for another $5,000, then they're looking at about 82 before that depletes. Now, what is a little bit more common, and the reason I put this number in here is $150,000, is because that's probably a little bit more common for somebody who never really concentrated on having a Retiree Health Account spillover into the RHA. And also, I put that in there because I've heard folks say with balances of around $130,000, $140,000 that they say, oh, that ought to be plenty. So just to kind of show what that looks like, and really that depletes at about 79 years old using the assumptions I'm looking at right there. So 79 years old, so it lasts about 14 years. But I don't know anybody whose retirement plan ends at age 79. So most of them we're doing are out into 90 and beyond, just so we're using conservative numbers and we make sure it lasts a long time. So in my opinion, if you look at this and say, well, if I run out at age 79, a person might say, well, I'm glad because I'm spending it all. I'm not leaving any of it in the Beaver Trust. That's great. But then again, you're really kind of leaving some tax benefits on the table if you take a look at it that way. So for the most part, I don't think lasting to age 79 really looks that long. Look, it doesn't look like it's I don't think it's lasting that long. It's not lasting long enough, I should say. So let's just take a look at it one more time. One of the other things some will look at it for us, and they will say, all right, well, I'm going to use it to fund not long-term care insurance, but a long-term care event. And so let's just take a look and see what that looks like. So even with a large RHA balance, $300,000 at retirement, with normal healthcare costs, without paying for a long-term care insurance policy, and you come over here and you have a long-term care event for $100,000 at age 83 and 84, it pretty much depletes immediately. So it depletes within a couple of years anyway, and that wouldn't even make it into year 3. So anyway, that's just to give some perspective. And so you could imagine if you had a smaller account balance, then a large long-term care insurance or a long-term care event would deplete it even sooner at a younger age than that. And again, this is $100,000. I just threw it in there. It's not even inflated. So if this was to actually happen in 17 or 20 years, then that $100,000 is probably going to be significantly more than that amount. So one of the things we forget about are the tax benefits of the Retiree Health Account. I shouldn't say we forget about them, but let's look at these in a different perspective. So if I was to let's just look at the green line here where our expenses are with no long-term care insurance policy. That lasts quite a while. And a person might say, I'm concerned that I'm going to leave some money in the Beaver Trust. I totally get that. So let's take a look at the other side of that. If all of that money came to us after taxes like it used to, instead of spilling over into the RHA, it just came to us and paid out after taxes and what we used to call PRAP cash, then your long-term, your medical expenses don't change. They're there, and they cost the same whether you have a retiree health account or not. So they don't change. So let's just say all that money came to us after taxes, and this is kind of what the account balance looked like. If you took that exact same amount of the money that spills over to the RHA, invested it the exact same way after taxes, and it did not grow tax deferred, then this is kind of hypothetically, this is kind of what a balance would look like. So that would deplete instead of age 92 or 93. We're looking a little bit more like 82 or 83. So here's the way that I like to think of this is that if you are in this period, as long as you live past this age, guess what? All of this time frame, it would have been paid in taxes to begin with. So it's kind of like, here's your real break-even age, because all that money would have been paid in taxes. You would not have received the tax benefit. So yes, if you were to pass away in this time period right here, yes, there is potentially some money that's going to be left into the Viva, but for the most part, if it was all after cash, it would have been left. It would have been paid to taxes anyway. So it's not, at that point, there's no significant change to what your heirs would be receiving as far as an inheritance goes. So that's just another way to think about that in those terms. So if this is $250,000 account balance, then you're looking at depleting with these assumptions around age 82. And then if we were looking at kind of an after-tax balance, then you're only looking at living past age 76 before you kind of at a break-even age. So that's just another way to look at those things. So I hope that provides some perspective. The question is, how much do you need? And when I do a financial plan, I look at costs that are specific to the individual. I use these assumptions. We talk about the assumptions. That way it makes sense to the individual. So the question is, how much do you need? Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Some will have TRICARE, some won't have TRICARE. Some will be married, some won't be married. Some will be buying long-term care insurance, some won't. So there's a lot of variabilities in here. So this question is, what do you need? I would encourage you to run your own numbers to kind of calculate how long it's going to be and realize what medical costs are going to be. And again, I covered that in the last video. So anyway, on the next video, I'm going to talk about reducing your Medicare costs. And so the first couple years you retire, they look back. Actually, they always look back 2 years at your tax returns 2 years prior, and that's how they determine what your Medicare costs are going to be. And that is if you have any Medicare surcharges. And when you come up on retirement, most couples expect a fairly substantial drop in their income from what it was 2 years previously, and so you can file a form called SSA 44 in order to help you get some relief for those periods. Now, if your income doesn't actually drop and you're still above those Medicare thresholds, it's not really going to do any good. But anyway, that's what the next video is going to be about, is filing that form, because there's maybe a couple tips and tricks you might want to know to do that. So, hey, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you know when that video comes out and all the other videos come out. Thanks for your feedback very much. And again, if you're coming up in retirement and you want to talk about creating a retirement income plan that you won't outlive, you're not spending too much and you're not spending too little, let's sit down and talk about it informally. Give me a call, shoot me an email. And my first meeting is always with you and your spouse if you're married. And we just sit down and talk informally. There's never any cost to that. It's just to get to know each other and discover what the process looks like. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your awesome feedback, and fly safe out there. I'm Dan Lohmar, CFP professional with United Wealth Management.